Unga எழுதிதரேன் குடு. குடிச்சிலடி 6 வருஷம். உங்க குடிச்சி இல்ல? எவ்வளவு நாள் குடிச்ச? 6 வயசு வரைக்கும் குடிச்ச. Baby, what do you remember about drinking unga from mama? Don't you remember anything? Okay, how did it taste?
Like milk.
Like milk? Are you sure that it used to taste only like milk?
Sweet milk.
Like sweet milk? Okay. What did you like about drinking unga from mama? You don't remember any of that?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. You used to tell me that unga tastes like strawberry milkshake or chocolate milkshake.
Yeah.
Sweet. It was kind of sweet. Okay. Did you feel sad about not drinking unga? No? You don't feel sad about not drinking unga? Okay.
No.
Why do we have breast?
To give milk for baby.
To give milk for baby? Okay. So my daughter was born around 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think I was getting stitched up. They were finishing all of the episiotomy stitches and everything. I remember my whole body was shivering. I think it was because of the adrenaline rush of birthing my baby. And probably roughly an hour later, I guess, I was shifted to another room, and I was given my baby. As soon as I lifted her up, she was here at my chest. She started making suckling noises. It was so loud that even the neighboring room nurses came running into this room to see what was happening. And I was able to nurse her. There was not much of an issue, no pain, nothing. The nurse helped me, and it was that session was over. And then I think we had a recovery sleep of probably 3 to 4 hours. Roughly both of us slept off. And then in the evening all the drama started. She was crying, and there was this one old lady who used to be my neighbor. So she had come to the hospital to visit us, and she tried to shove my breast into her mouth while she was crying. It was getting so traumatic, and I was very thankful that visiting hours were over. Everybody went back home, and in the night we fell into a rhythm. Like she would wake up on time every 2 hours, and then I'll just put her to breast. I didn't know what I'm doing. I just kept putting her to breast. This was happening, this was going. Very next day when family started coming over again to the hospital, every single time she cried, family started complaining that I was not making milk. And nobody knew that milk takes a couple of days to come in after the birth. And it was getting a little bit difficult, but it was a good thing that my husband is a doctor. So he had some sense to tell the family to shut up. So that was something that was very, very helpful for me, him supporting me, and that is how my breastfeeding journey started. So when we came back home and everything, breastfeeding was going fine, but in my mind it was such that every time the baby cried, I had to breastfeed. So that was the only thing I knew to do. I didn't understand that the baby can cry for many other reasons. So there was this one day when she started crying. I tried to put her to breast. She was refusing to latch on, and I immediately felt like, okay, I failed as a mother. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm done. It's done. So I put her down. She was crying, I'm crying, and then my father came over and he just took her, patted her on his shoulder. He was walking around, and that is when after a good cry I realized that maybe she might have gas issues. That is why she's crying. And then I realized that I'm crying a lot and I'm confused. I'm feeling like I may not be able to do this. It was a feeling like there's an exam. I'm trying to clear that exam, and I feel like I'll not pass this exam. I'm studying hard, but I feel like I will fail this exam. So that is what it felt like. And then one fine day I spoke to a friend of mine who was doing all of the parenting and everything on her own from day one. She didn't have any support from both sets of parents. And when I spoke to her, she told me some certain things, and suddenly it sparked me that I should try to bathe my baby. So I asked my dad, can you help me bathe her? So we prepared all of the hot water and everything. We went into the bathroom, we bathed her, and it was not a very smooth experience for the baby, for sure. She cried, but when I bathed her and took her outside of the bathroom, the first feeling that came into my mind was, the first thought was, I didn't kill my baby while bathing her. I've survived this. So I think I will pass this exam. So that was the moment that flipped it for me. I think I was probably too attached to the baby, because I remember very well that I cried so much when her umbilical stump fell off. It was, I felt like, okay, the connection is permanently lost now. It's gone. All the umbilical stump fell off, so it doesn't mean that she's connected to me anymore. I cried for that. I literally grieved that incident. So I didn't know if I even had breastfeeding goals. I didn't think about it. I didn't have any idea about how long I'm going to breastfeed or how long I should be breastfeeding. Everything was on the go for me. I learned everything on the go. And thankfully, I live in Coimbatore, where there is a very active parenting community, and I was able to meet those people, and I saw with my own eyes elder children breastfeeding from their mothers. All of that was very new for me, and it was normalized for me very early on. Probably when Aadhya was around 4 months, 5 months, everything was normalized for me. And the very first breastfeeding week we celebrated was when Aadhya was 6 months old, and 6-7 months old, and I went everywhere with the group. We did baby wearing dance, we went to hospitals, we went to many places to spread awareness on breastfeeding. So that is when I saw a lot of people breastfeeding their older children and everything. That is when I thought, okay, I'll continue for as long as I want, as long as it goes. I started reading about it. I still remember the very first chart which had all the details about the benefits of breastfeeding more than a year. I think it was a chart in one of the pediatric hospitals that we visited. So I still remember that chart in my head. So that was the moment probably that cemented this thought in my head. So that is how I think I decided to go as long as we can. Every single time she cried, for anything for that matter, whether she was feeling upset, whether she hurt herself or whatever it was, breastfeeding made life easy for me. So there was no thought in my mind about weaning her off. I didn't even think much about any other benefits. I didn't even have to, look up how much she's drinking or how much was it beneficial for her mentally. I didn't think about anything of that sort. I was just continuing because it was also convenient for me. It was also helpful for her because she was able to, settle down with breastfeeding, and she was drinking whenever she wanted. And I think being a stay-at-home mom also helped me in one way. And we went through major transitions during her second year of life, and I think it was easy because of breastfeeding. So there was no thought in my mind about weaning her off. It's not like nobody asked me to not wean her off. There were people who were asking me to wean her off. There were people who were giving me sly remarks about you're still feeding her, especially my grandmother. She kept saying, you will breastfeed her on her wedding day. She told me this, and I was like, yes, I will. Probably I will. Who knows? She told me that. And she kept asking, you will still feed her when she goes to school? I said, yes. And you will still feed her when she goes to her wedding? I said, yes. So that was going on, and there was also other kind of pressure. Some people would come and tell my daughter itself, you're grown now, you should stop feeding from your mother. Only if you stop, you will get Tambi or Tangachi. So I was like, first of all, I should be thinking about whether I'll be making another baby or not, but people were putting pressure on my daughter, and I taught her to talk back. I told her, you have to tell them it is good for you. If somebody says so, if somebody comes and asks you, you're still feeding from your mother, you tell them it is good for me. So she started giving them back. We continued breastfeeding, I think, until 6 years and 2 months approximately. So there wasn't much of a drop in breastfeeding or sudden increase in breastfeeding after 2 years. It was a very gradual drop, I would say. And I did have some aversion, especially during the nights. My breast would feel like it's itching. It would feel like I just had to scratch it. Every time she would drink, when the milk came out, I used to feel that itchy feeling, and I used to, sometimes I think I have scolded her in sleep. I would complain, why won't you please sleep on your own, please? I think, shouted at her in sleep. My husband used to tell me the next day morning. So it was not a very smooth, rosy ride for 6 years. There were ups and downs, but there was no stop sign in sight. It was just, we just kept going. And then I think somewhere around 5.5 years or something, 5.5 years, around that time I started noticing that she was sleeping on her own. If she was tired enough, she was able to sleep on her own without me. So one day she would sleep on her own, one day she would nurse to sleep. So it was on and off. There was no pattern even for that. I think somewhere around 6 years and 2 months. I'm saying I think because I don't know the last day we breastfed, because it was so gradual. I didn't even know that we had stopped nursing. I realized after a good week or so that she had actually stopped breastfeeding for probably a week or 10 days. So that it didn't hit me much, but I decided to write about it. That was the moment that it hit me like a ton of bricks. I started crying. I grieved that whole process. I thought she'll not love me anymore. I thought she'll not need me anymore. So it was an emotional kind of a couple of days, but I soon realized that she can't not love me without breastfeeding. So that was the process. It was very, very gradual. I didn't even know that it was stopping. It was very natural. It was a very organic way of weaning. So somewhere around the time when she was 2 years old, or a little more than 2 years old, I started setting a few boundaries, because until then I didn't set her any boundaries for her. Like wherever she wanted to breastfeed, I did, and wherever we went, we did. So it was not like I didn't have any control over it. So beyond a point, I felt like I should start setting a little bit of boundaries, because it was getting a little bit tiring for me, especially during car rides. So the moment we get on the car, she'll latch on, and she'll not unlatch until we get out of the car. So it was getting a little bit, annoying and difficult, and I was also going through a little bit of, like I said, aversion. So I started setting boundaries in the car. So I kept telling her, we'll not breastfeed in the car. We will only breastfeed when we are at home or somewhere else. As soon as we reach that place, we can breastfeed, but I'll not do it in the car. And then I kept giving her snacks, and everybody actually asks us like how I speak to her so much. I keep speaking to her. So I think this started when we started setting this boundary. I'll put her on my lap. I'll describe, explain every single thing we see outside on the roads. I'll show her everything as a means of not wanting her to breastfeed in the car. So that is how we started setting the boundaries, but it also came with no cold turkey. I didn't stop just like that. If she asked, I would give and say, "Avlada, after this I will not give you. We have to go to that place and then drink again." And it was probably a few weeks or months, probably a couple of months for her to stop breastfeeding completely in the car. And slowly, I think beyond this, the first feed that was dropped was around 3.5 years. That is when she started going to school and she started dropping the morning feeds, early morning feeds. So whenever, if I was there with her in bed, she would breastfeed. If I'm not there in bed with her when she woke up, she wouldn't breastfeed. She wouldn't ask for it also. She started walking to the kitchen, come and find me in the morning. So eventually feeds started dropping like that. I didn't do anything special about that. And the feeds that were happening in the middle of the night stopped on their own because she started sleeping through the night. That came with growing up. That's a natural milestone. They have to achieve the milestone when they grow up. So I think that started somewhere around 4 years. She started sleeping through the night. So those feeds dropped. So now that we've weaned off, looking back, I have had many favorite memories with breastfeeding. We've played around with breastfeeding. I've let her play with my body. All of those are very fond memories for me. And now I miss it in certain places. Sometimes I feel, especially when she falls sick, I feel like maybe it would be good if breastfeeding was there. And sometimes I just feel like keeping her close to me and breastfeeding her. That feeling that I miss sometimes, especially because she started going to school. She's away from me for a few hours a day, and sometimes when I feel very disconnected, I miss that. But otherwise, I'm very happy that my body is back to being my body. It's mine. I own my breasts again. It's not a shared commodity anymore. So that is one thing that I really like about stopping breastfeeding. But I do have very, very fond memories. I've forgotten all of the the aversion days and all of that. I've actually buried all of those memories down. I only remember all the good things. I think it's something that your brain does. You only tend to remember all the nice rosy moments about parenting, so that you will want to make another baby. I think it's something that evolution does to you. You only remember the good things so that you will want to make another baby. If you remembered every single detail, then you will probably not want to make another baby. So yeah, I do have very, very fond memories of breastfeeding. It's good. How I survived my motherhood. என்னடா நடுவில் சரி எடுத்துட்டு வா, திருப்பி எழுதி தரேன். தென் நீ ரெக்கார்ட் ஸ்டாப் பண்ணுற, எழுதி கொடுத்துட்டு வர. நாட் மேக்கிங் மில்க், ஸோ தட் வாஸ் கோயிங் ஆன். நிறுத்திக்கலாம். பேபிமா, யூ ஆர் திங்கிங்கா, வை டோன்ட் யூ சிட் அட் த டேபிள்? நீ அந்த டேபிளில் கொஞ்சம் இந்த பக்கமாக உட்காந்துட்டீங்கன்னா உனக்கு அம்மா பார்க்கணுன்னா அம்மா தெரியும். இல்லை அம்மா வாய்ஸ் கேட்டால் போதுன்னா நீ அங்கே உட்காந்துக்கோ. நோட் புக் எடுத்துகிட்டு போ, ஃபுட்டு நோட் புக்கு. It has an Alexa, but don't talk to Alexa, please.
It's unplugged.
It's unplugged, okay.
Silly, Ma.